All right, let's dive in. What if I told you that most of our big, passionate debates about morality, well, what if they're all built on a massive statistical blind spot? Today, we're going to unpack a completely different way of looking at right and wrong, not as a matter of opinion, but as a hardcore problem of survival. This is the question that really kicks things off, right? You look at one culture and it's thriving with its set of rules. Then you look at another with a completely different set, and hey, they seem to be doing just fine too. So, who's to say one is better than the other? It feels like a really reasonable question, and it's the foundation for a very, very popular idea. And that popular idea, of course, is moral relativism. You know the drill. You just look around the globe and you see this incredible patchwork of cultures that are, for all intents and purposes, successful. They have wildly different ideas about everything: family, justice, honor, you name it. And yet, they're all still here. They're all making it work. So, the thinking goes, if all these different moral operating systems are running and the societies aren't crashing, well then maybe morality isn't some universal objective truth. Maybe it really is just a matter of perspective. It's just what works for you. But what if that very logical sounding conclusion is based on fundamentally incomplete data? And this right here is where everything takes a sharp turn. Because that common sense relativist viewpoint, it's missing something. Something huge, something that by its very nature is completely invisible to us. That missing piece has a name: moral survivor bias. And this changes the game entirely. Suddenly, this isn't a philosophical debate anymore. It's a statistical error. We are forming our entire understanding of morality by only looking at the winners, the cultures that made it. Because the ones that failed, well, they're not around to be studied. And this phrase just puts it so perfectly: the invisible graveyard. Think about it. For every successful culture we can point to today, how many thousands of others adopted a set of rules that were so out of sync with reality that they just collapsed? They imploded. They ended up in this vast, invisible graveyard of failed ideas, and we never even get to count them in our survey. Okay, so if societies with bad moral codes fail, what's actually doing the filtering? It's not some cosmic judge or a person with a checklist. Nope, it's something way more fundamental and impartial: selection pressure. It's just like in biology. Your culture is a system, and it has to operate within the unforgiving laws of reality. If your code doesn't work, you don't adapt, you just disappear. So this pressure basically sorts every possible moral code into three big buckets. Down at the bottom, you have the universally immoral stuff. These are the ideas that are just self-terminating. They're so flawed, they lead straight to collapse. No way around it. Then, way up at the top, you have this theoretical perfect path, the optimal strategy for long-term survival. And in the middle, that's the messy part. That's the locally viable zone. And guess what? That's where all the cultural diversity we see lives. It's the space for codes that are just good enough to have not died out. At least, not yet. Now, if you're going to look at morality this way, as a functional problem, you basically need a whole new language. It means we have to stop thinking in terms of sin or breaking mystical rules and start thinking more like, well, more like a systems engineer. Here's the core difference. The old view sees being immoral as a transgression, right? You broke a rule set by a god or by society. But in this new framework, immorality is basically a bug. It's a structural flaw in your society's code that makes the whole system unstable and prone to crashing. It's not about being bad, it's about being badly designed. And this new vocabulary is pretty wild. Immorality gets redefined using a term from physics: entropy, a high entropy state. Basically, it's just chaos, disorder, wasted energy that puts a huge burden on the whole system. Evil stops being some spooky, malevolent force and just becomes a trajectory, a direction, a path that points toward non-existence. And the consequences for following that path, they're not a punishment. They're just the logical, predictable result of running a program with a fatal error in it. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? In this framework, the final, impartial judgment on any moral code isn't passed down by some being. It's delivered by reality itself. If your system goes extinct, it was, by definition, a flawed system. End of story. So, let's pull all these threads together. What's the big takeaway here? What does it all mean when we look at morality through this lens of survival and selection? It completely flips the relativist argument on its head. All that beautiful moral diversity we see in the world,
it isn't proof that any path is as good as any other. It's actually the opposite. It's the evidence that we're only looking at the systems that were just good enough to squeak by, to avoid total collapse. This diversity isn't some grand principle. It's simply the luxury of survival.
And that leaves us with this final, massive question. If morality really is about solving the functional problem of long-term survival, then our job isn't just to look back and see what kind of worked in the past. The real urgent question becomes, what is the optimal path forward? What's the best possible code we can write to make sure that consciousness itself gets to stick around for the long haul? Now that is something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.